ICE is operating with $168 billion to facilitate the world's largest mass deportation operation in history. But they're failing. And it isn't because of protesters or mainstream media or radical lunatic leftists. No, the DHS is failing because of their own doing, because of their own greed. The Atlantic just published an article detailing the specifics of this failure. And based on DHS's own data, detainments, arrests, deportations have all seen an at least 10% decrease since June. Now, you would think in July, when they got $45 billion in additional funding, that those numbers would increase, but they actually decreased. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that it was because they set incredibly lofty goals. Stephen Miller cited he wanted 3,000 arrests per day. That barely happened. They campaigned on deporting 20 million illegal immigrants when there has only been about 10 to 11 million. They campaigned on targeting violent gangs and rapists. But DHS's own data shows 72% of current detainees have no criminal conviction. And the ones that do have a criminal conviction, most of them are non-violent. But here is where things get really abysmal, no matter which side of the aisle you are on this issue. This operation is a failure because it is a massive, massive waste of taxpayer money. Money that's being taken away from health insurance subsidies for low-income individuals. By DHS's own data, it costs $17,000 to arrest, detain, and deport someone out of America. It costs $165 per person per day just to detain them. And if you think those numbers are high, just look at the numbers for state-run facilities. We're talking Speedway Slammer, for example, costs $291 per day. And Alligator Alcatraz costs $249 per day. Now, where is that money going? Because if you look at these detainment camps, the conditions are absolutely inhumane. They don't have beds, they don't have blankets, and they don't eat healthy food. Your tax money is spent on that. Your tax money is spent on cruel, abusive, inhumane concentration camps. People that are not criminals and have supplemented at least $1.7 billion in tax money to this country. Now, these numbers are especially frustrating when you consider that DHS's own program, Alternatives to Deportation, cost only $4 per day. They put an ankle monitor, they monitor where your whereabouts, and you can go back to work, you can live with your family and live a life of dignity. You have to be subjected to some of the things that we've been seeing on timelines and on news feeds. 90+% of those contracts were going to Geo Group or Core Civic, two private prisons whose executive leadership comes directly from former ICE leadership, like Daniel Bible. Tom Homan, before he rejoined ICE, was a consultant for these companies. This is obviously a very big conflict of interest. Just like Stephen Miller throwing loads of investment money into those companies right before these policies took place. And Tom Homan, of course, taking that bag of $50,000 from people who he thought were private prison executives. But now Kristi Noem and her second banana, Corey Lewandowski, want to make sure that they review who is grifting all of these special interests. So they are personally approving contracts over $100,000, which, if you know anything about government agencies, is a lot of contracts. They spend a lot of money. So much for this government of efficiency they tried to sell us, huh? Now, with these delays and pauses in contracts with private prisons, they are upset and they're fighting back. They're spreading rumors that Kristi Noem is giving all the contracts to red state governors to boost her bid for a vice presidential pick in 2028. Government agency leaders are saying that private prison executives are ripping off taxpayers and wasting money. It's a civil war between private prisons who thought that they would get all these contracts, were telling their investors how this was going to be such a profitable year from them, how they invested and funded in the building of these private prisons that are mostly empty, and the state prisons who provide less beds, more money, less habitable conditions. Now, meanwhile, the people who are doing things the right way, they go to work, they go to school, they take care of their families, they stay out of trouble, they show up to their immigration court hearings, they're subjected to all of the things like this. And this is all for the sake of profit for guys like Eric Prince and Daniel Bible on the private prison end, Greg Abbott, Ron DeSantis, Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, Donald Trump. It doesn't make anything easier for ICE officers becoming antagonists in this government grift. They're becoming scapegoats for bad policy and are actively recruiting Trump loyalists, psychos. It doesn't make communities safer if they can't go to court or communicate and contact law enforcement. And it doesn't make America great again when we take billions away from healthcare and put it in the pockets of private industrialists. It's a broken operation, it's a bad policy, and it's run by unqualified cronies. ICE deportations was Trump's loudest and proudest and most supported issue. But all he's been able to do, like he does with all of his activations, is reveal his absolute ineptitude to govern. Just like everything else he does, he fails in demonstrable fashion and he rips off the people that support him the most.